Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Pearson, your elementary ELL teacher. Today we're going to do an oral retell for Kindergarten Journeys Lesson 10, and our anchor text is Mouse Shapes by Stoll Walsh. So for this lesson, you're going to turn and talk. That means I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to think about your answer. Then you're going to pair up with a partner at home or at school, or you can be my virtual partner. And then you're going to share your thinking in a complete sentence or sentences. So, Mouse Shapes. Is Mouse Shapes a fantasy story? And fantasy means things that cannot happen, like the alligator building a sandcastle on the beach. Or is Mouse Shapes reality? Reality means things that can happen, like you or this girl in the picture at the beach. Well, the genre or type of literature of Mouse Shapes is fantasy. What do we notice about fantasy? Well, fantasy stories noticings. Fantasy stories are or is a make-believe story. There are magical places, magical things happen, animals act like humans. Animals might wear clothes. There might be monsters, aliens, or dinosaurs. Animals might be extinct in real life. There can be events that can't happen, and the story might be funny. Here's our learning target for our lesson. I can retell the story Mouse Shapes using my words, pictures, and sentences. Success criteria. That means how will you know you're successful at retelling the story Mouse Shapes using words, pictures, and sentences? Well, here are your steps to success. I will. Number 1, answer the talk about it questions. Number 2, I will. Say and match the main characters in the story. Number 3, I will. Put the retelling pictures in the correct sequence or order. Number 4, I will. Say and match sentences to each picture, saying what happened first, then, later, and last. And finally, I will. Say and match the lesson or moral of the story. What did you learn from the story, or what did the characters learn? The moral. Here are some vocabulary words from Mouse Shapes that you might say when you're talking about the story. Number 1, hurry. Hurry means to go fast, hustle. Number 2, pounced. Pounced means suddenly jumped and tried to grab. Number 3, sneaky. Sneaky means acting in a secret way, secretive. Number 4, tricky. Tricky means hard to do, requires skill or care, challenging. And finally, number 5, clever, showing creativity, intelligent, or smart. So, if you have a partner at home or you're at school and you have a partner, here's our turn and talk rules. Number 1, you are eye to eye and knee to knee. That means you are facing and looking at the speaker or looking at your partner face to face. Number 2, first one person talks, the other person listens. Number 3, then the next person talks, the other person listens. 4, do not talk too long on your turn, or your partner will not have time to have a turn. And if you're watching this from home, you can always push pause, finish your talking with your partner, and then resume the lesson by pressing play. When you are speaking with a partner, you may agree with them or you may agree with me. And if so, you can say, I agree with you because, and say why. You can also respectfully disagree. And if you disagree, you can say, I disagree with you because, and say why. So here's our first major event in the story, mouse shapes. I want you to look at the picture. Number one, what are some things you see in the picture? What are some things you see in the picture? So when you turn and talk, you can say, I see, and then say some things you see in the picture. Well, I see a mouse and I see a pile of shapes, and it looks like the mouse is running into the shapes. Here's our second question. Why do the mice run into the pile of shapes? Why do the mice run into the pile of shapes? They run into the pile because, so tell me why they run into the pile. They run into the pile because, well, they run into the pile because they are being chased by a cat, or they saw a cat and they want to get away as quickly as possible. The cat pounced on them. Number two, here's a second major event, and here's your question. What shapes do the mice use to make a house? What shapes do the mice use to make a house? So with your partner, you can take turns saying, the mice use a blank and blank. So tell me at least two shapes. The mice use a blank and blank. Well, the mice use a triangle for the roof and a square for the main part of the house. The mice use a triangle and a square. What other things do they make out of the shapes? So think more in the story. What other things do they make out of the shapes they find? So you could say they also build, well, they also build a mouse face. I mean, not a mouse face, I'm sorry, a cat, the face of a cat. They also build, I believe, a tree and a wagon or, yeah, a wagon that they can go into. And then at the end, they make larger mice. What shapes did the mice use to make a cat? What shapes did the mice use to make a cat? So look closely at the picture. The shapes they used were, well, the shapes they used were a circle, triangle. I don't see any squares, so it's mainly circle, triangle, circles, and triangles. What is each shape supposed to be? What is each shape supposed to be? So the triangle is supposed to be, and the circle is supposed to be, you can even say the colors of the shapes. Well, the blue circles are supposed to be the eyes of the cat. The pink triangles are the cat's ears. The red triangle is the nose, and the yellow triangles is the mouth. And did I already say the orange circle is the face of the cat? It's our last major event. Right, why does the author call the mice clever? Why does the author call the mice clever? And remember, the author is the person who wrote the story, and that's Ellen Stoll Walsh. Why does Ellen Stoll Walsh, the person who wrote the story, why does she call the mice clever? Well, the mice are clever because they build or make uh, bigger mice, scarier looking mice out of shapes. Oh, and I forgot to say, this scares the cat away. So let's go over and retell the story Mouse Shapes. Retell of Mouse Shapes. The characters are, who are the characters in the story? Say it in a complete sentence. The characters are, well, the characters are the three mice and the cat. The characters are the three mice and the cat. So now we're going to put the four major events in the correct sequence or order. So what happened first? Then, later, and last. That is the correct sequence. First, then, later, and last. So first, what do you see first in the first picture? What did the mice do? What are they doing in that picture? You see one of the mice, the mouse, is, well, first, the mice are running or hurry to hide from the pouncing cat. The mice hurry to hide from the pouncing cat. So they go and hide in the pile of shapes. Then what happens? Whoops. Then they make or they build, the mice make or the mice build, well, the mice find a square and a tricky triangle. The shapes make a house. Later, what do the mice build? Later, the mice build or they make, well, later, the mice use shapes to make a cat. And finally, last, what do the mice do? Well, last, the mice are clever and scare the cat away. The mice are clever and scare the cat away. So think, what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story or the lesson? The author wants us to learn. What does the author want us to learn from this story? What can we learn? Well, even if you are small like the mouse, you can be, what can you be? You can be clever to outsmart a sneaky enemy like the cat. So even if you are small, you can be clever to outsmart a sneaky enemy. All right, let's reflect on our learning target. What was our learning target? I can retell the story mouse shapes using my words, pictures, and sentences. Would you give yourself a 4? I could teach this lesson. I easily answered the questions and retold 4 important details from the story. Were you able to retell all 4 of those important details? If so, give yourself a 4. Or would you give yourself a 3? 3 means I was able to answer most of the questions and retold 3 important details from the story. So if you were able to answer most of the questions and you retold at least 3 important details, give yourself a 3. Or would you give yourself a 2? I was able to answer some of the questions and retold 1 to 2 important details from the story. If so, give yourself a 2. Or would you give yourself a 1? I was not able to answer the questions and I did not retell the story. Well, I hope you enjoyed talking about the story Mouse Shapes, including the characters and the 4 important details and the lesson or moral of the story. I encourage you to read the story again and have a great day.